Hello and welcome to my channel where we make gourmet tasting cake using a box mix. We are getting toward the end of October, but we are still in our Halloween extravaganza, and today's flavor is caramel apple. So stick around while we make something boxed, but better. Let's get things started by preheating our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's kick off our cake batter by adding 1 white box mix into our bowl. Next, we are going to crack 3 large eggs. Then I am adding a ½ cup of Granny Smith applesauce to give it a nice tart flavor. Follow it up with a cup of apple juice. 3 tablespoons of green apple gelatin. I usually do not name drop, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I like the Sonic brand the best. Now it's time to mix it up all nice and beautiful. This will take about 2 minutes. Scrape down the edges of your bowl as needed to make sure that your batter evenly mixes. And now is the time to decide if you like the color it is or if you would like to make it even more green. I am adding more green because I love the pop of color that it has on the inside when you cut the cake. Pour your batter into 3 8-inch round pans. Make sure they are well greased and floured so that the cake does not stick. Smooth out your batter evenly in the pan, although it does not need much help because this batter is a little on the thin side. And now it is time to bake our cakes. It has been 25 minutes and our cakes are done. There are 2 ways to check to make sure they are done. The first is the poke test. Poke it with your finger, and if it does not leave an indent, it is done. The second is the toothpick test. Insert a toothpick into your cake, and if it comes out clean, your cake is done. Now we will let it cool. For our caramel icing, we are going to sift 1 pound of powdered sugar a little bit at a time until it is completely sifted. Normally, I would say you don't have to do this if it's a fresh bag, but with this icing, you have to sift it even if it is a freshly opened bag. In a large saucepan, add 1 stick of unsalted butter and a ½ cup of packed brown sugar. Now we are going to cook it on a high heat. Add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract to a 5-ounce can of evaporated milk, and leave it to the side for later. Making caramel icing is a fairly easy process, but one you must be vigilant in, because it requires constant stirring to make sure that your sugar and butter caramelize but not burn. Once your mixture reaches a vigorous bubble, set your timer for 2 minutes and continue to cook while stirring constantly. Be sure to drag your spatula along the bottom of the pan while you stir to make sure that nothing is getting stuck at the bottom and burning. You'll notice that your mixture is now much darker in color, and if you stop stirring for a moment, it begins to foam up and look frothy. This is exactly how we want it to look. Now that we have reached the end of our 2 minutes, we need to stop the caramelization process before it burns. To do this, you need to turn off your heat and then add 1 tablespoon of your milk and vanilla mixture to your caramel. Be forewarned, it's going to throw an absolute temper tantrum like a 2-year-old in the middle of a grocery store aisle. Shock it 1 more time by adding another tablespoon and continue to stir. If you are worried about getting burned, you can wear an oven mitt, but honestly, it's not as scary as it looks. Once you have finished shocking your mixture, you can add the rest of your evaporated milk and vanilla. As you can see, I was struggling to do this at an angle in which I was not in the way of the camera, so luckily my cameraman was there to lend a hand. Remove your saucepan from the heat completely and stir it for about another minute to help it to cool. Pour your caramelized mixture into your powdered sugar. This is still very hot, so before you turn on your hand mixer, just use it to simply stir in your caramel as much as possible. This will keep it from splashing out when you turn it on, because we do not want anyone to get a sugar burn. Mix on low speed for about 2 minutes. This will help your caramel to cool, as well as give it a nice texture and consistency. To give our cake an even stronger apple flavor, I am adding a scoop of apple jam and spreading it out thinly using my butter knife. Next, I am pouring a small amount of caramel icing into the middle of the cake. This icing is very thin, similar to that of a glaze, so it will begin to spread out all on its own. I'm giving it a little bit of help and spreading it to the edges and then letting gravity do the rest. After that, we are going to repeat the same process with our second layer and then add the third layer on top. Now it is time to give it a crumb coat. I know that sounds strange because the icing is so thin, but doing a crumb coat will help the final layer of caramel to stick better to the cake. To do this, pour enough icing to cover almost the entire top of the cake and then spread it to the edges. Gravity will then begin to do the rest as it will take it down the sides. Use your butter knife or decorator spatula to smooth the sides. This is going to help it adhere more to the edges when you add that final coat of caramel. For the final coat, pour an even thicker amount of icing to cover the entire top of the cake. Encourage your icing to spread evenly over the whole cake by coaxing it in the direction you need it to go. We don't want the icing to completely fall just on one side of the cake. Once again, gravity will take over and it will pull it down all the way over the sides, just like if you pour a glaze over a cake. Use your butter knife to smooth over any gaps that the icing did not cover. I know this definitely looks like a hot mess, but just trust the process. Once the icing begins to settle, scrape off the excess amount from your cake board. I'll be honest, if this looks like too much work, you can always bake your cake in a 13x9 pan and then simply pour your icing on top. It'll still taste just as good. You don't have to get overly fancy with it. I'm just simply showing an example of how it can be done, but remember, this is your cake. Have fun with it. Just like how some caramel apples are rolled in nuts, I am adding some chopped peanuts to the bottom of my cake. I am using a sandwich bag with a hole cut in the corner to zigzag some caramel icing that I dyed green on top, just to give it a nice pop of color. Then I topped it with some green apple runt candies because they are absolutely adorable.
And there you have it, our delicious caramel apple cake. Thank you for joining me. I had a lot of fun and I hope you did too. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And I will see you next time on Boxed But Better with Genna. And there you have it, our delicious caramel apple cake. Yeah, it's a caramel apple cake. Okay, I feel like this cake personifies who I am as a person. Like, really sweet, but a bit of a hot mess.